And we're recording. Hey guys, so here's a little demo for how to use black and white Conte on toned gray paper. Now, one thing you'll notice is I've sort of divided this thing up. I want you guys to draw on a full sheet of paper. My little phone setup, I'm not zoomed out enough, I'm not drawing on a full composition. So this little square just represents the smaller composition that I'm demoing for you. You are to draw on a full sheet of paper. The next, well, let me show you what I'm actually drawing from and my setup. A little bit. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, so I'm drawing from this little simple setup that I've put over here. I'm kind of in front of a window. Avoid setting up in front of a window. I do have this the back blocked off with this piece of cardboard, which is good. And notice over here, I have a clamp light. So a really nice strong light source. This is a very simple still life. I want your work at home to be more ambitious than this. Okay, but suffice it to say, this is just, you know, a demonstration and of how you can use the black and white Conte. What else? So you'll see I started off this little still life drawing of my actual setup, and I started off by using vine charcoal, and vine charcoal's really useful. You know, it smudges around, you can erase it easily, it's not quite so permanent. Maybe if you see over here, I'll draw off in the margin, this Conte, it smudges a little bit. It's very similar to compressed charcoal. So the black one smudges a little bit, this white one I think actually smudges even less. So this is, can you see that? Yes, you can see that. So again, that does not smudge. One of the good, best uses of this is to use it to make directional marks, since it doesn't blend very well. I mean, you could pull out a blending stump and probably push this around a little bit, but you're not going to get that much out of it, depending on what the brand of Conte you're using is. So, like what we were doing last week with the directional marks that would lead the eye across the surfaces, right? You don't have to do contour drawings with this, but think about those directional marks as you're drawing this. So again, I have this thing kind of plotted out with vine charcoal. You could use light pencil if you're more comfortable plotting things out with light pencil, but use something that is easy to erase to set up your composition. And then now, I mean, I have this really dramatically lit scenario. There's very clear divisions between light and dark. There's very clear value structure. So what I might start doing initially is I have this egg. Let's look at, I'm going around this egg. Let's kind of start to look at going in this direction. And remember, imagine what it would look like traveling around that egg, okay? And there's a point at which I might want to start to wipe out some of that vine charcoal that I have here, because I'll notice on my still life setup I don't have a heavy contour or a heavy shadow on one side. So, but if you go the vine charcoal route for setting up, you will find that you can, after the fact, erase this fairly easily just by wiping it out, bringing in your kneaded eraser or a pink eraser. Right, and so notice how I'm following around. I can afford to be pretty loose with this. Maybe a little bit more loose than graphite. Graphite is so precise. This is a little more forgiving than graphite. But I just keep checking into, okay. And then, so I have my my black Conte. Let's look at the sort of really subtle stuff that's happening. I might decide there's kind of a middle gray that's passing through right here. And then there's a little bit of reflected light that's going to happen right there. So I want to preserve some of that. But down here, and there's going to be a little bit of reflected light down here, which I might be able to actually bring in some of the white Conte to help capture that. All right. So I have a pretty decent suggestion of light and shadow right here. Now what I might do is start drawing in the cast shadow. And I see that, and what I could do, if I want to find, I can bring in this to help me road map. This is the vine charcoal. I can bring that back in to help me kind of road map where that shadow cast by the egg is. I've done it a little bit right here, a little bit right there. There's a little bit of shadow over here. And that shadow goes pretty much all the way up into I'm going to be fairly general with this right now, okay? Now I'm going to move on to the mug. So I'll switch back over to this. Let's see here. I'm going to say I can kind of move around the handle. I'll start with the handle. Sort of moving around the handle in this direction. And the handle also kind of goes down in that direction. We'll clean all this up as we go. There's mostly light hitting this portion of the bottom part of the handle. Kind of going across in this direction. There's a little bit of not super deep shadow, so I might just let that stay put as the gray, this back sort of bottom portion of the handle. And now maybe I'll go ahead and just start moving over to this portion of the mug. And for these directional marks, you'll notice I have this mug, which is a cylinder, right? And I have these ellipses, right? I have the top and the bottom. It's easy just to follow that direction as I go. And again, I might want to think about getting rid of that outer contour that I've drawn with vine charcoal. Then as I get into this, I can kind of start layering back on, or maybe I'll get back down to the egg at a certain point, and I'm like, this part of the egg needs to be sort of brighter, right? It has more highlight hitting it. I can go back in. But again, I'm working pretty general at this point. And then right around this area right here, it starts to shift over to your kind of your mid-gray, your like half-tone roughly. And then, so I might leave that a little bit. Then maybe I'll start to get into here, which is my core shadow. I'm going to have a little bit of reflected light over on this side. I'll have a little bit of reflected light. So notice I'm following the direction of the, what would be the cross contours, right? Actually, let me come back in here, because there's a little bit of, there's light that comes down here as I'm seeing it. And then maybe I'll actually even bring this over a little bit more and just try to preserve a little bit of the native gray of the paper for that edge. Okay. Then at this point I might start to say, well, I want to push some dark darks. So I know that the darkest areas come at the bottoms of the forms. So maybe I'll come in here and I'll sharpen that up a little bit with my black Conte. Same thing with the bottom of this egg. So on and so forth. So let's bring this around a little bit more. And then notice at the top, well, you can't see my still life, I'm sorry about that, but there's almost this white contour that happens at the rim of the opening of the cup, of the mug. And then there's actually, I can go across, a lot of the rim is actually pretty well lit. So I might actually just continue following this. The plane switches directions, so I'm moving across the surface. You see how these little teeny hatch marks that I made lead my eye up and around, right? And that rim, it doesn't get, it's not maybe super highlight over here, so I'll be a little bit more ginger about applying that white, but I can put this little ghost of white in there. Now, there is at the top of this rim, there's almost, in some portions of it, there's almost a contour, a black contour on the other side. So I can go ahead and throw that in there. And it doesn't go all the way around. Okay? And then now, what I'm going to do is I see the inside of this mug, right? It gets pretty dark gray in there. So, again, I'm being pretty general about this. And this, for some reason, the black that I have, it's two different brands. The black is a little bit softer and a little more powdery. Conte is pretty waxy, so it's not super powdery, but whatever. Right here, I can bring this contour in because there's a bunch of shadow down here. So, this is beginning to take form, right? Let me make sure I'm still recording. Okay. Yep. Okay. And then now over here, I see there's there's some light on the inside of the mug. Not a ton, so maybe I'll be fairly general about it. I'm kind of going over the boundaries of this little sponge brush that I have on here, but that's okay. And actually, maybe down here, I'm noticing down here, as I look closer, the shadow in this portion of that shadow area is a little bit heavier, a little bit darker. So I'll go ahead and represent that while I'm going. Okay, and then now, let's see here. Right up in this rim, this portion of the rim, it's fairly, I get a decent amount of this white up on the rim. Catches a decent amount of light. So what I can start to do is do a little bit of that directional mark making, going up onto the rim that leads my eye across that way. Maybe you guys can see it a little bit on here. Okay, so I have that. Now, you know, what I can do is I see on the side of this brush, it catches a fair amount of light. So I might go ahead and just start plotting that in there.